Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Coronavirus Facts vs. Myths. I'm Rishika Barua. The big story that we're tracking on the show today are more young people getting severely affected by COVID-19 in this second wave of the pandemic. Remember, the Delhi government had warned about more infections in those below the age of 45. Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal had even released a video message in which he'd urged young people to take care, saying that in this wave, the youth are getting affected. Well, is this second wave of COVID-19 that we're currently seeing, is it disproportionately affecting young people and even pregnant women? That's the question that we will ask on the show today. Now, let's just put this in context because the government statistics actually say otherwise. The government's data shows that young people are not any more worse hit than they were in the first wave of the pandemic, and we'll put out that data on our screens as well. However, we've been speaking with doctors who say that anecdotally, they are seeing more young people presenting with COVID-19 symptoms, some with severe symptoms, landing up even in ICUs, and a lot of young people actually losing the battle to COVID in this second wave. So to make sense of how COVID is affecting the younger population in this second wave, whether it is a variant that is infecting more younger people, whether it is some mutation in the virus that's not sparing anybody, or whether it is the fact that we had a delayed vaccination for those under the age of 45. We look at all of these questions. We have a panel of expert doctors, frontline doctors who are joining us. These are doctors who are fighting COVID-19 on the front lines, and they'll tell us what they are seeing. Dr. Anjan Trikha, the chairman of Clinical Managerial Group COVID Care AIIMS, joining us from Delhi. We have Dr. Arvinder Singh, Chairman and Chief Surgeon, Medanta Liver Transplant Institute. We have Dr. Tripti Gilada. She's an infectious disease physician working at a prominent hospital in Mumbai. Dr. Lavleena Nadir, Senior Consultant Gynecology from the Fortis Lafayette Hospital. I want to first come to you, Dr. Trikha, as someone who is on the front lines of COVID-19 at AIIMS. What are you seeing anecdotally happening in the second wave? Are you seeing a lot of young people losing the fight to COVID or getting severely affected?
Not really young people fighting it out and losing the fight, but because the bottom number is more, we see a lot many patients. Okay. Yes, we have patients who are between the age of 30 to 55, if you can call them young, but I am not seeing a lot of patients who are around the age of 20, right? But yes, there are patients who are between 30 and 55, and many of them are here with us who also have some inherent co-diseases, comorbidities with this, and they are the ones who are getting affected.
All right, interesting. So you're saying that essentially the rise in the number of young people getting infected is actually perhaps attributable to the fact that the denominator is increasing in the sense that our numbers are rising. Dr. Arvinder Singh, would you agree with that assessment? What are you seeing, clinically manifest in your experience?
So I think what's happened this time around is that the young people have been more casual. They have indulged in COVID inappropriate behavior. Of course, they've not been covered with vaccines. The vaccination for 18 to 45 has just only started on the 1st of May in restricted areas of the country. And perhaps we are dealing with a different variant because we are seeing different symptoms and we are seeing that it's spreading faster. It's affecting younger people. So our impression is that there is certainly more young people becoming sick, needing ICU and dying in this wave compared to last year. There are two bits of statistic that I would like to share with you. We analyzed our own data of patients with chronic liver disease who have succumbed out of the ones that who got infected with COVID since last year. We had 410 patients. And if you look at the less than 45 population, the mortality among them has been 18%. And over 45, the mortality has been 22%. And if you break that up, then the mortality has been very similar in the two groups, about 21 and 20 this year, and 16 and 24 last year.
Right.
So proportionately, this year we've lost many more young patients compared to last year in the comorbidity group of chronic liver disease who had COVID. We are also a part of a global registry where there are more than 2,500 patients of chronic liver disease with COVID. And compared to last year, the last 3 months analysis shows that there is a higher rate of mortality among young patients with chronic liver disease, even in that registry data. So 2-3 things emerge here. One is that younger people are getting affected and probably becoming sicker this time. And 2, patients with comorbidity who are younger are equally at risk compared to older patients with comorbidity.
Well, I think what
So
you're
they're
right. I think
vulnerable.
what you're saying, doctor, is very important because from what we learned anecdotally again, in the first wave was that the younger people are actually getting a much more milder infection that could have also led to younger people letting their guard down as far as the second wave is concerned. Dr. Tripti, what are you seeing? You also work at a COVID ICU in Mumbai. What are you seeing firsthand? Are you seeing a lot of young patients landing up in ICU, a lot of young patients losing the fight to COVID?
Yes, I think we are definitely seeing much more younger patients as compared to the first wave, both coming with symptoms and with severe disease severe enough to get them into the ICU. And I definitely think it's an interplay of a lot of factors. Yes, they were not vaccinated as much as the elders were, but we definitely think that there is a new variant that is responsible. Because what we're also seeing is the percentage of symptomatic cases this time around is much more than what was in the first wave. In the first wave, we usually, in a family of 5 or 6, there would be 1 or 2 who would be symptomatic. This time, we are seeing entire families that have some kind of a symptom or the other. Yes, majority of them are mild, but they are symptomatic, and we are definitely seeing younger patients falling ill, sometimes even without comorbidities.
All right, so that definitely does point to a worrying picture. And once again, I'm highlighting that these are doctors sharing what they are seeing firsthand on the ground as doctors who are fighting COVID-19 on the front line. The government data so far doesn't substantiate this. So anecdotally, what one is seeing is that younger patients are getting infected. I want to bring in Dr. Lavleena into the conversation as well. Dr. Lavleena, because, the other big concern in question is that if younger people are indeed getting more infected, maybe because they let their guard down, maybe because this is the working population, maybe because they haven't been vaccinated, what is the status as far as pregnant women is concerned? What are you seeing firsthand? Are you seeing more pregnant women infected with COVID in the second wave as opposed to what you saw earlier in the first wave?
Yeah, absolutely. We are seeing many more pregnant women getting infected with COVID during this wave as compared to the first one. And definitely we have now whatever data we have analyzed, we have independent, pregnancy is definitely an independent risk for more COVID-19 complications, and more patients are landing up with hospitalization and ICU care as compared to the first wave.
Right. And Dr. Lavleena, the other question that I want to ask you is about vaccination, because Dr. Tripti raises an important point that, it could perhaps be that more infections between the young are being reported as compared to what we saw last year, because the younger population hasn't been vaccinated. As far as pregnant women or lactating mothers is concerned, there is still no vaccine here in India. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so ICMR still does not recommend vaccination during pregnancy and lactation because we don't have trials on the vaccine during pregnancy and lactation. And of course, 2 vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer, they have been recommended, but they are not available in India. So now our national and international organizations like FOXI and FIGO are recommending vaccinations for pregnant and lactating women. And now the talks are on, and let's see if we get the trials and we get going. But we are definitely, as gynecologists, want our pregnant patients to get vaccinated. And we want to give this as a choice to the patients, they can decide. But as of now, it's not available for pregnant and lactating women.
All right. So as of now, it isn't available here in India. I want to, just very briefly, before we go into why this is happening, I want to very briefly understand from you, Dr. Trikha, the point on vaccination. In your opinion, do you believe that we are seeing the surge that we are seeing? We're seeing young people getting infected. I know that, your take is that the denominators increase, therefore more young people are being infected. But, do you believe that we delayed vaccination for those under the age of 45? Had we done this sooner, maybe we would have seen lesser young people being infected. How do you look at it?
Yeah, that's perfectly. That's perfectly true. But then one must realize that vaccination was a government program, and they did it as per their own judicious decisions. They wanted the healthcare workers first, the frontline workers first, and 65 years and people above that first. So that's perfectly fine. That's the way it happens all over the world. But we have a huge population which is between this age group, unlike many other countries.
Yes.
So that's why we're seeing a surge. You know, the number of people in this age group is much more than you would see it in Italy or France or any of the European countries.
Yes.
So that's why these people go out, get infected. They are the rapid spreaders, and then they'll end up with problems. And because the denominator is more, we are seeing more of them. And as Dr. Soin had said, if they have liver disease, they're going to land up into problems. And let's not forget one more thing. We are having more problems now because after all, the healthcare workers are also fatigued. Each one of us has been working for 15 months without a break. Everybody and anybody. I'm not talking about doctors. I'm talking about the lowest person in a healthcare worker scheme. The nurses, the sanitary people, they are all at it, and the fatigue has set in. And they are obviously we don't really talk about mental issues in these cases. But if you really go into the details, many of them will be having depression or something of that kind because they have been seeing so many deaths in and out, and they have been working without any breaks.
Well, absolutely, and the mental impact, the trauma that frontline workers, people in general, at the moment are going through is just something that we're not even quantifying, not even talking about enough. Dr. Arvinder, if I can also ask you, why in your assessment are you seeing anecdotally more young people falling sick? Why do you think this is happening? Why do you think more young people are actually losing the battle to COVID this time around?
So I think all of us have already spelled out the reasons for that. And one of them is, of course, it's a different variant for sure, which is symptomatically different, which is progressing faster, which is spreading faster. The other is, of course, the younger population haven't been vaccinated and they've been going out to work. And so not just for work, but otherwise they've been congregating probably irresponsibly. But the other reason, of course, is that what do you think accounts for the waves or surges? It's bits of population that are exposed to infection, then they get infected, then the virus doesn't have any more people to infect, then the curve comes down, and then new populations get exposed. And that is the working younger population that has now got exposed and therefore getting the infections. Somewhat similar to what Dr. Trikha just said. So because we have this young population that is getting exposed in the last 4 or 5 months, that now we are seeing that surge of young people getting infected.
Right.
The older, everybody understands the older are at risk, so they stay at home, they get vaccinated and so on.
Right. Dr. Tripti, as someone who is in a COVID ICU, you're saying that anecdotally you are also seeing more young people landing up in ICU. My question therefore is that do we know enough about the variants in India to empower doctors like yourself to make decisions on how to better deal with a patient?
Unfortunately, we do not have any official data about what these circulating variants are or what the viral property of the variant is. How is it differently, spreading or being more virulent? So all that we are doing is, like we're all discussing here, it's all anecdotal reports, what we hear from colleagues and what we are seeing across the country. But yes, it would really help. In fact, it always helps. So say 2 or 3 months back, if we were told that there is a circulating new variant which might be different from the previous one, I think it helps doctors, but at the same time it also helps the population, because then it's like a warning to them, and then they improve all their COVID appropriate behavior. So moving forward, it would definitely help to have this data much earlier than after we are like pretty much in the mess of a second
Well,
wave.
absolutely. And is there just an information black hole as far as the variants are concerned? Are we not doing enough to be able to understand what really is happening? Because remember, the government data as of April still says that there is no change in terms of young people getting infected or dying due to COVID from the first wave. But anecdotally, you've just heard from doctors firsthand that the story is different. Dr. Lavleena, I also want to ask you, because you raised the point of Pfizer and Moderna being safe for pregnant women. There is an interesting development that's taken place in terms of the Biden administration now announcing a support for a global waiver on patent protections as far as COVID-19 vaccines is concerned. This is a big move for poorer countries, for vaccine equity. How are doctors like yourselves responding to this development?
Yeah, it will be nice if we get the patent and if we get those vaccines here, because we have already trials done on those vaccines. So we would be able to, recommend that safely. But till we have it, so talks are on, and we are hopeful that, we would be able to vaccinate our pregnant and lactating mothers.
Right. Dr. Trekha, would you like to respond to this? It's a big development that's taken place. A lot of pharma companies are not going to be happy with it. If the patent for, say, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson can be shared with Indian manufacturers, do you think it will go a long way in enabling us to get the doses we need?
Yes, I think that's a very right decision which has been taken, and I can assure you it is not the end of the story. The jury is still out. These pharmaceuticals will try their best to stall it, because after all it means billions of dollars. But then we all must accept two things. First is it's a pandemic, and the second thing is we are one of the largest economy who are using all possible things which are which come from the West. Let's say simple things like Apple computers, Cokes, iPhones. We are a huge economy. Now is the time when we can put our foot down. We can try to say that okay, fine, we can again avoid using your things unless you give us the vaccines.
Yes.
We have been trying to do that, and this is the right time to do it.
Okay.
And I'm sure people in the government would do it this way.
So on expected lines, understandably, doctors batting for this move. Pharma companies, of course, apprehensive at the moment, but it is a big decision. If it does in fact come through, we will keep a close watch on those developments as well. We're going to slip into a very short break on the show at the moment, but on the other side, our phone lines are open. You can call us. Our panel of expert doctors will continue to be live with us. You can ask your questions on COVID-19 and we'll have them answered. Stay with us. Welcome back. Our panel of expert doctors continues to be live with us. We have our first caller dialing in from Mumbai. Radhika, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So, if I was listening to the talk that if the D-dimer levels are high, then doctors are recommending blood thinners. So, just wanted to know, what about females who are menstruating? Do they still take the blood thinner, Ecosprin or some other blood thinner while they are menstruating?
All right. Dr. Lavleena, would you like to take that question?
No. See, it depends on we have to treat according to the COVID protocol treatment. So depending on the D-dimer, it's not a little bit. So there are definite values. So if it is more than that, if they're affected by COVID, only then we are giving, Clexane or something, otherwise not routinely.
All right. But can you have a blood thinner?
Menstruation has no effect. Okay. Yeah, menstruation has no relation to whether we should give or not. It depends on the COVID state, the severity of COVID infection.
All right. Asriddhi Khan is dialing in from Sukma in Chhattisgarh. Go ahead.
Yes, मैम मैं पूछना चाह रहा था कि ये जो कोरोना वैक्सीन का जो फर्स्ट डोज है वो कोवैक्सीन का और दूसरा जो डोज है वो कोविशील्ड का ले सकते हैं क्या?
Okay. Dr. Anjan Trekha, would you like to answer that?
मुझे सवाल ठीक से समझ नहीं आया।
डॉक्टर, सवाल ये है कि आप पहला डोज कोविशील्ड का और सेकंड डोज कोवैक्सीन का, दो वैक्सीन मिक्स कर सकते हैं क्या?
ओके, ये आपको मिक्स नहीं करना है। अभी तक कोई हमारे पास प्रूफ नहीं है कि मिक्सिंग से कारण आपकी इम्यूनिटी बढ़ जाती है। पूरी दुनिया में ऐसे कुछ ट्रायल हो रहे हैं, यूके में खासकर हो रहे हैं, बट वो सिर्फ ट्रायल बेसिस पे है। तो आपको ये राय दी जाती है कि जो आपने पहला शॉट लिया था वही शॉट आप टाइम से 4 हफ्ते या 6 से 8 हफ्ते कोविशील्ड और कोवैक्सीन वैसा ही लें। आप मिक्सअप मत कीजिएगा।
All right, so you can't mix two coronavirus vaccines, not at the moment. You have to stick to the second dose of the same vaccine that you got the first dose of. Our next caller, Vikram, is dialing in from Gurgaon. Go ahead.
Madam, my query is that when I take the first dose, does immunity fall for the next 14 days? And after the second dose, does immunity fall for 14 days and then you have the antigens coming in?
So your question is whether immunity falls after the first dose?
First dose and also for the second dose. After a gap of 6 weeks, when I take the second shot, does immunity fall for the next 10-12 days and then the antigens are produced?
Dr. Arvinder Singh, would you like to take that on?
So let's be very clear. When you take the first dose of the vaccine, your immunity does not fall. However, your ability to fight COVID will only come in after the second dose is taken after a 4-week gap. or more between the 2 doses. And after 15 days of taking the second dose, you're able to fight the COVID infection. So the immunity doesn't fall with any of the vaccine doses, but the immunity you need to fight COVID will only develop fully after 2 doses and after 15 days of that.
All right. I think that's an important clarification. Dr. Tripti, would you like to add anything? Because there is, a lot of apprehension about people who are getting the first shot and testing positive for COVID. Some people even getting both shots and still testing positive for COVID.
So there is a myth that people have started thinking that they're getting COVID because of the vaccine. And I think we really need to inform people that the vaccine does not cause COVID. COVID is caused because of the complacent behavior. A lot of times people start thinking that since they are vaccinated, they are now protected, and their behavior becomes slightly irresponsible and the masks come down.
Yes.
So even if you are vaccinated, with 2 shots, we still have to continue COVID appropriate behavior.
All right. That's very, very important advice. Our next caller is dialing in from Mangalore. Tukaram, go ahead.
No.
Mr. Tukaram, can you hear me?
Yes.
Please go ahead. Ask your question, sir.
I have already taken, I'm Gulf returnee. I have taken second dose on January 20th. So how long the immunity will last? And I'm taking all precautionary measures.
All right. Which vaccine did you take?
Pfizer.
Pfizer. All right. Dr. Trika, would you like to take that on? Someone who's taken a second shot of Pfizer on Jan 20th, how long will his immunity last?
Okay. To be honest, world over there is still some controversy as to how long the immunity will last with all of these vaccinations which are available. So this gentleman has come back from the Gulf, has had Pfizer. So unless some report comes in from the West that you are due for a next third booster dose, he should just follow COVID behavior and do nothing else. When people ask you this, that, well, how long does the immunity last? What comes to my mind is that they are thinking of partying and going out and have a ball. They are waiting for 3 months, or within 3 months they can have a ball. Within 4 months they can have a ball. Okay. That is not true. Vaccine or no vaccine, the behavior continues.
All right. So vaccine or no vaccine, there's absolutely no party in sight anytime soon. On that note, we'll end the show. Thank you, doctors, very much for sparing your valuable time and being with us on this edition of Coronavirus Facts versus Myths. That's all we have time for. Short break here. We'll be back with more on the other side. Stay with us.